Alright, ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to talk about section 4.1, which is plotting points on a coordinate plane. Our essential question is going to be, how can we plot points in a coordinate plane? So for our key terms, we have our coordinate plane as shown below, and you guys have seen this before. You've got your x-axis and your y-axis. But something that we really want to focus on are our second key term, which is our quadrants. Which, when you think of the word quad, if you think of, it makes me think of quarter. So if you can see, our graph is divided up into quarters. So we're going to label our quarters. So we've got our quadrant number 1, which we're going to start up here in the upper right-hand corner. Our quadrant number 2, our quadrant number 3, and our quadrant number 4. We use Roman numerals to denote which quadrant we're talking about. So a quadrant is going to be a quarter of our coordinate plane. And now if we've got our ordered pair, as our next key term, our ordered pairs are going to be the points that we plot. So the points on our graph. So an example of an ordered pair would be 1, 2, 3, 4, and they are always in the form x, comma, y, and so those are our ordered pairs. So since we just talked about ordered pairs and we said they were points, our next question is going to be, how do we plot the points? So the first thing we're going to do is start at the origin, which when we think of origin, we should think back to the beginning. So this is the point 0, 0. It's the point that's right in the middle of our graph. It's where everything starts. It's the beginning. And our coordinate pair, x, y, that we just talked about, gives us all the direction that we need. Our x-coordinate, which if we look at our x-axis goes this way. That's our x-axis. Tells us how many units to move blank and blank. Well, if we look at our x-axis, it goes from left to right. So our x is going to tell us how to move left to right, and then our y-axis, if we look back to our coordinate plane, we can see that our y-axis is going to tell us how to move up and down. So if we think about it, if x is negative, just like if we had a number line, we'll move to the left. And if x is positive, we'll move to the right. And then the same logic, if y is negative, we'll move down. And if y is positive, we'll move up. Just use your number sense. Think about it because each axis is its own number line. So using the coordinate plane, plot the following point. So if I'm going to plot the point, if I'm plotting my point A, and I'm going to do 5, 3, I'm going to start at my origin. I'm going to use my x because that's in the form x, comma, y. So if with x it's positive, I'm going to move to the right. So I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so that's where my x, and my y is negative 3, so I'll go down 3, 1, 2, 3. So right there is my point 5, 3, so that's my point A. Now what about my point B? So if I have my point B, I have negative 3, 2, we start at the origin, it's negative 3, so I go 1, 2, 3 spaces to the left, since x is negative, and since y is a positive 2, we can move up 2, and then that point right there is going to be our point B. And then last but not least, we have our point C, which is our negative 1, negative 3. So to plot point C, we'll go using our x, y. It's over to the left 1, down 3, 1, 2, 3, and our point, if I just make this just a little bit bigger, our point's going to be right there, and that's going to be our point C. Now, if we look at our points A, B, and C, which quadrant is point A in? Our point A is going to be in our quadrant 4. Our point B, if we're going in alphabetical order, is going to be in our quadrant 2, and our point C is going to be in quadrant 3. So you've got quadrant 1, quadrant 2, quadrant 3, and quadrant 4, but here we can only see that our points only lie in quadrants 2, 3, and 4. So now what if I wanted to graph functions? You guys have talked about graphing a little bit. So if we see example 1, it gives us a function 3x minus 2, y equals 3x minus 2. Your first step is going to be make a table of values. But let's think about what kinds of numbers we should pick. So I don't know about you, but I don't think I want to deal with decimals or fractions at the current moment. So we're going to pick integers. Integers. I'm going to write it over here. So we're going to pick integers. So if I'm going to make a table of values, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pick a variety so I can see some positives and negatives. I'm just going to go ahead and pick -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2. This way I can get positives and negatives in there. So go ahead and take this time and pause and go ahead and fill in the values when you plug in your x's. Alright, so check and make sure we got the same thing. So then you're going to go ahead and we're going to plot those points. So go ahead and you'll plot -2, 8, -8. So -2, 2 to the left, and down 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and it's a little off down the bottom with 8. And then we've got our -1, -5, so -1 to the left, down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we're going to plot our second point. Be careful when you're plotting your points. And then we've got 0, -2, so 0, and then down 2. And then we've got our 0.11, so up 1 over 1, and then 2, 4, 2, 4. So if you notice, they kind of form a pattern. So go ahead and you see that you've got your points now, but let's talk about the domain. So if I'm going to look at my domain, which is going to be our what values? It's going to be our x values. If I look at my domain, I see I've got -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2. So that's going to be my domain. But if I look on the flip side and I look at my range, so my range are going to be my y values. I've got -8, -5, -2, 1, and 4. So that's my domain, and that's my range, and that's taken care of. We are good to go. So you plotted your points using your function, went ahead and plugged in, and did a great job. So now if we're looking at example number 2, it gives us a function, and it also gives us a domain. It says with a domain. That's what we call a restricted domain. So we say it's restricted. The problem only wants you to use those values. It's a restricted domain. So the nice thing about a restricted domain is you don't have to think about what values you're going to pick for x. It gives it to you. So go ahead and with those x values, so we've got -4, -2, 0, 2, and 4, go ahead and plug those into your function and see what you get for y. Alright, now check and make sure we got the same thing. Make sure we filled in our table with our x and our y. So we've got our points. I'm going to go ahead and plot. So I've got -4. I go 4 to the left and down 1, which gives me my point right there. And now if I've got -2, 0, I'll go 2, -2 to the left, and I don't move any on the y-axis. I move 0 units. And then if I'm going to go 0, 1, I go 0 units to the left or right and go up 1 unit. And I keep going, 2, 2, move over 2 and go up 2. And then my last point for my table is over 4 and up 3. So I went ahead and plotted my points. Now the nice part about this is it gives us the domain, so now we're going to look at the range. What is the range of our function? Well, the range, we've already taken care of our x values. We've got our y values, so it's -1, 0, 1, 2, and 3. Alright, so now that you guys are experts at plotting points, go ahead and try this example. We've got a world map, but the first thing I want you to look at is look at your x and y axes. And the one thing I do want you to look at is look at the scale. So when I talk about the scale, I'm not talking about like stepping on the scale, I'm talking about weighing stuff like that, but look at the scale. In our previous ones, we've gone by 1. Here, we're going by tens. So your scale can change. You do not always have to go by 1. In fact, if we went by 1, it'd be a little hard to fit all of these points on one, right? You have a pretty large graph. So go ahead and plot your points. Go ahead, pause, plot your points, and answer the question of which continent and which quadrant. So go ahead and check your answers with mine. Now our points may vary a little bit based on guesstimating because we don't have ones that lie exactly on the points on the grid. So go ahead and look now. If you notice, none of our points lie in which quadrant. We have no points in quadrant 4. But what if I wanted to say, okay, if I told you a point was in quadrant 1, what options of continents, what options of continents would we have? Go ahead, pause, think about it. So if we look at quadrant 1, we can see that there's 3 options for continents. We can see that Asia, Europe, and Africa lie in quadrant 1. So using your quadrants and using your continents, you can tell which is where. So we see we had none of our points in quadrant 4. Which 2 continents lie in quadrant 4? Well, we've got Australia and part of Africa. Would it be possible to have a point in quadrant 2 and be in Asia? No, because Asia is completely contained in quadrant 1. So make sure when you're checking that your answer makes sense. Always be aware of which quadrant you're in, as well as where your point lies on the graph. So if we go back to our first page and we look at our essential question, the answer to our essential question, how can we plot points in a coordinate plane? Well, we use our points as directions. And how do we use them as directions? Well, we start at the origin, and then we move. So go ahead and double check, and if you need to, go back and rewatch parts of this video. And so now, since you've gone back and flipped through your notes and made sure you're good to go ahead and try this assignment on page 210 of your textbook. So 23, 24, 26, and 37. Use the graph paper that we gave you in class.